and welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast that's part of a balanced breakfast. I'm your host, Brett Bodie, and with me as always are my co-hosts.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Samantha.
And today we'll be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's 2002 controversial classic ? Signs.
Is it the controversy or the classic that's the question mark?
Yes.
Oh.
And I don't know, there might be other stuff in the mix too. So we'll get into it. I guess I'd like to start. So Mel, what do you remember about this movie when it came out?
So I would have been 12. Definitely went and saw it in theaters. And I remember liking it a lot and watching it a lot. And I hadn't seen it, I think, in a couple years, maybe more. I don't really have a grasp on time anymore now that I'm in my 30s. But rewatching it for this podcast, kind of thinking about it instead of just letting the movie wash over me, was a very, I would say, joyous experience for me. But we'll get into that later. Sam?
Well, in supposedly rewatching this movie, I'm like, did I ever watch it? To be honest, I know I certainly did not see it in theaters. I think I've seen bits and pieces. I was fully convinced I'd seen this before, but I'm wondering if number one, it was one of those movies I was told on the school bus. And then I saw some clips.
It could have been that combined with like seeing the trailers for it on TV.
Right.
And you just like...
Because like, I mean, I know that scary scene at the birthday party. I know bits and pieces, but like watching this, I was like, is this my first time watching it? I was convinced
how
it
could
was
I
my
forgotten
second.
about the asthma subplot?
Because I sure was like, what? There was multiple times because I was watching with my husband and I was like, I don't remember that part. Also forgot who the main cast was. And I was like, oh, there's some heavy hitters in this.
I know.
Yeah.
A
And
lot, actually.
I do want to talk a bit about the cast, some of the more pleasant surprises and the unpleasant, I knew that person was in the movie.
Yes.
Because I have seen it a lot. But what you say does kind of make me think about how I seriously doubt very many Gen Z or Gen Alpha have ever seen this movie. Like,
Right.
I really don't think they've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was huge when
It
it came
part of the zeitgeist. In maybe, I mean, definitely not as much as some of his other movies. I mean, maybe his second
I don't know.
most.
I think, yeah, probably his second most after Sixth Sense. This
Yeah.
was like the big cultural touchstone.
Yeah. Brett, what about you?
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for asking.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I also saw this movie in theaters, and this was a big moment for young Brett. This was the first scary movie I ever saw in theaters, and the first scary movie I saw without my mother being there to like cover my eyes. I saw it with my dad, and like he didn't give a shit and couldn't be bothered. So I just like, it was also like the first scary movie I kind of watched fully unfiltered, and it was the first one in theaters. So I was like basically pissing myself because there were parts that I thought were so scary because I had nothing to like prepare me or desensitize me. So it was just maximum signs. And we were in like the second row. So it was just right up at the front.
I hope you had water with you to feel safe. Or at least some sort of liquid.
No, not at that time. No, we weren't.
Okay.
My father would not have bought concessions at a movie theater. So
Sneak 'em in.
I'm not going to slander his good name on the pod. He wouldn't do that.
When you go see scary movies with your mom now, do you cover her eyes?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, so I don't know how much she got out of her Civil War ticket because I had her eyes covered the whole movie. But yeah, so Signs was like it was so scary, but I loved the rush of it.
Yeah.
And then it was fun to like, I finally had seen the movie that everyone else was also seeing. So I liked just being in that, like in the zeitgeist for a bit.
I mean, I don't think that we can overemphasize how big The Sixth Sense was. And then this movie came basically right on its heels.
I think so.
I think like, what, 2 years later or something like that?
Yeah, a year or two.
And it was giant. Like, everybody saw it. Well, enough about that. Let's talk about Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah, wait, I wrote down a joke. Let's see if I can find it.
Oh no.
Fun fact, Mel on our podcast actually adopted their name as a tribute to their favorite actor and humanitarian, Mel Gibson.
As a Jewish person, I do venerate famous Jewish person fan Mel Gibson. No, so I do think it's pretty weird that Mel Gibson's name is Mel. It's not short for anything.
Oh, really?
Oh.
It's just...
As far
it's
as
not
I can
Melbert
tell.
or Melvin.
Melbert.
Well, so
love it.
I like to think that I name myself after Mel Brooks,
Okay.
who's more Jewish friendly
Yes, one could safely say.
than the most Jewish man to ever exist. But his name is Melvin Comiskey.
Okay.
But,
No, this Wikipedia, Mel Gibson. Like, it's not, I don't think it's short for anything.
just Mel. And this was before his freak out,
Yes.
but I think fully within him being a Catholic psycho.
All I was going to say was just like, so he's famously problematic, and you can Google it.
Yeah.
Unrepentant.
Yes.
He's kind of rehabilitated. I mean, to not get rehabilitated by Hollywood, you have to be really bad.
Yeah.
And just hating Jews, which is like, I guess, fairly normal.
No, but isn't Hollywood run by the Jewish cabal?
Yeah, I
So
learned
surely
that.
they would have, surely they wouldn't allow an anti-Semite to keep working.
Yeah, I learned that from Mel Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I will say, as someone who grew up loving Mel Gibson movies, it hurt.
Oh, yeah, that really sucks.
Because, like, I watched a lot of, like, The Patriot, and weirdly, I really loved his movie Ransom. It was with, like, Gary Sinise.
Okay.
I'm going to say it holds up, but I have not seen that movie in probably 15 years. Obviously, Braveheart.
Mad
like,
Max.
Mad Max. And he's so good. That's what it, like,
That's what I was
sucks.
going to say, is that he really is so fucking talented.
He
honestly
so
is. He's so good.
It sucks so
I know, it's the worst part.
What about Apocalypto? That was him, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we saw that in my high school Spanish class.
I heard it was fine, right?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was really so entertaining and interesting and exciting.
Did it make you forgive him?
No. I'm like a rare breed, I guess, in that I can hold two slightly contradictory ideas of one thing in my head at the same time, which I think my co-hosts can also do. But no one I've ever seen on the internet or on TV apparently can. Because just like, they're bad, and therefore the things they make are bad.
And now they're
because
untalented.
bad. Right. I'm like, no, that... Like, sit in that discomfort. Like, those things can both be true. Like, they can be bad and also make good things. Or vice versa.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Kevin Spacey. Like, we won't get into it, but it's
Yeah.
like there are so many movies he was in that were so important to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problematic people in Hollywood, and yes, it is the Jewish people's fault. Anyway, let's talk about Signs again.
Well,
Yes,
I will
let's do it.
say that either because I never actually saw this movie or Mel Gibson's been so out of it that I forgot
that he was the lead.
Yes, I know Signs, and I was like, oh yeah, let's watch. And I feel like I saw the character in my head, and then when he got on screen, I was like, Mel Gibson.
Well, and then the cavalcade of stars just
Yes.
doesn't fucking end.
I
Joaquin
forgot,
Phoenix,
yeah.
Cherry Jones.
Yeah, Cherry Jones, who's like a multi-time Emmy and Tony Award winner. Merritt Weaver
Yes,
is like the girl at
yes.
the pharmacy, and she's like a multiple Emmy winner and is like super big now.
was very excited
Abigail
about that.
Breslin.
Abigail Breslin, Rory
Rory
Culkin,
Culkin.
are the
Another
kids.
Culkin. There's so many Culkins. I looked them up, and there's like 7.
There's a lot.
Yes.
Are they Catholic? They
Yeah,
just-
I think they are
yeah.
actually.
You kind of
something.
usually are if there's that many.
Yeah, it's been known to happen.
But
yeah, just like
actor M. Night
shockingly-
Shyamalan was in it
Yes,
too.
Well,
he
he's-
couldn't resist casting himself. in the
Always,
movie.
always.
Always in his movies, but I think this is one of the bigger roles that he's given himself.
Yeah, it's
And
a pretty big one.
he's fine.
He was doing an accent that I don't think that's his normal accent. I mean, it didn't sound normal, so no offense, M. Night, if you're listening. Number 1 fan of the pod.
Oh no, he's gonna change his 5-star review.
What if he likes it? He's like, yes, trash talk me. And I'll be like, okay.
He might. I would believe it if he had like a shame fetish for
mean-
some of the movies he's released.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they
even
made The
those-
Happening.
even- Yeah, but I've liked some of the ones I've gotten trashed. Just saying.
But this movie came out when he was at like the peak of his
Yeah.
game. And I have to say, and I'll say it first, this movie fucking rules.
Hell,
I do, and I
yes.
really enjoyed it.
Agreed. This movie is actually fucking awesome.
Like, it was even better than I remembered it being, and I always liked it. I laughed. I cried. I was scared of moments I knew were coming and still, like, jumped out of my seat. Like, this is
It's a good story.
really good movie.
I totally
good.
agree. It's just so well constructed. Like, nothing is especially subtle, but everything is effective. It's all just simple and effective and direct, and it just works on, like, every level.
And they hit me with, at the opening, the score.
Yeah.
And I
score's good.
looked that
Score's so
up. So
good.
composer James Newton Howard, and I got this from IMDb, my favorite source.
I mean, he was also listed in the credits.
yes, that also.
beginning of the-
But I
No, but
wasn't
it didn't
paying
say what
attention to
else
that.
What else he wrote in the
Oh,
credits.
okay, good.
Oh,
Oh, but I was just gonna say that because I wanted to look up that. I mean, the beginning of it, because I was like, oh, this reminds me of so many things, and I was thinking like Wicked Witch of the West theme, and when I looked it up, I was like, okay, not so much that, but he was instructed to reference classic films like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Psycho.
yeah.
And that the beginning is very similar to Psycho and The Twilight Zone. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm thinking Twilight Zone. But I think that really brought me in from the start. So during the credits, before we're even like in anything, I'm like, oh, I'm ready.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
go.
And the just opening title sequence is so great because it's just got that kind of gray background, and it's like the white text like smashes in time with the music. And then it fades away, and then the next one smashes in on the next big musical beat. The music and visuals are so intense and so in sync, so you're already feeling like propelled into the start of the movie.
Yeah.
And then I'd love to talk about the opening scene. So just kind of like filmmaking stuff was really occurring to me last night. So I'll try to keep it brief. It's truly the first like 2 minutes that I want to like break down. So our credits end. We open on a shot of the backyard. There's like the swing set, the grill, like the play jungle thing, and then the cornfield in the back. And then the camera zooms out, so we see that it's not just a shot of the backyard, it's through a window. So the shot gets slightly distorted by the glass of the window. So it's almost like our view of the audience, like this backyard is like, we don't have a clear, unobstructed view of this thing. The next shot is the family photo. The wife is in the center, the family of four. She's wearing light colors. She is the like focus of the shot. And then that family photo is immediately obscured with Mel Gibson sitting bolt upright in bed. And it's his face, and he's like breathing hard. He's obviously just woken up from a nightmare. And the camera has done a great job of connecting. Like, obviously he's dreaming about his wife. Just the visual language, you can already infer it, even if it's not something you consciously know yet. His other half is missing. Everything else has two, and he's the only like single object in the frame.
Damn, you were
I'm
noticing
so
that.
sad.
It is sad. No,
Pick
I
up
know.
on that.
And then so he like goes to check on the kids. He doesn't hear them. We get a shot of the wall where a crucifix used to be hanging. You can see the outline, but and since it's so discolored around it, you can tell it was there for a very long time and was taken down. And then on the left side of the shot is the bathroom door. You don't see Mel Gibson. Then you hear a scream from off camera, and he does a perfect like comedy like step. He like sidles entirely into the doorway with a toothbrush in his mouth, and it's so funny. Actually, that was like my first laugh out loud moment. And yeah, even just that first tiny chunk, I was like, M. Night is at the top of his game, he's a brilliant filmmaker. I was like, the language of film displayed in that is just like perfect. It's so clear. Like the storytelling, we get so much before like the first line of dialogue.
I think it's also worth mentioning that he wrote, produced, and directed this movie. Like, this is all him. But then even after that, so something that I wrote down is rewatching this, I kind of had two running lists going. And one was scares.
Okay.
Because I think this movie has some really masterful and very effective scares in it.
Yes.
And just dialogue. Like, this movie has some of my favorite dialogue in it.
Hell yeah. The couch scene is so good.
It's all so good.
Yeah.
And, like, after he runs out because he hears his kids screaming, he runs up to his daughter, who's played by Abigail Breslin, and she just says, "Are you in my dream too?" And it's just like, I get really annoyed with how a lot of little kids are portrayed in horror movies because they're not like people.
Yeah.
They're just sort of creepy little objects that sit there to creep out the audience. Like, they don't talk, they just draw creepy shit. They don't act like kids. Like, they're
Right.
just,
They say ominous things instead of things that a child would say. Yeah.
like, they'll point ominously. But in this one, I think it's the lesser Culkin. Was it Rory?
Rory.
He just takes his dad's like chin and points it.
Yeah.
And so there are these beats that are sort of like evocative of what we've seen in horror, but done in ways that are, I think, a little more clever and just feel real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, as much as this movie is cheesy and like extremely earnest in its cheesiness, which is something I really like about M. Night. Like, I think all of his movies are so earnest, which people will like blast him for. In this movie, it works so well because of the themes.
I so agree. Yeah, the sort of crisis of faith and like the tension that's causing it. His family is also introduced there because his son Morgan says, "I think God did it," and then Mel Gibson says, "Did what?" And that's when Morgan takes his chin and points it at, and then we see that it's the crop circles.
Yeah.
There's like a big zoom out moment, and like the dogs are freaking out. They're like running around barking, and it's this huge zoom. And apparently, they planted this corn for real. That was just an empty field, but they didn't want CG corn. So like a year before
like
production
it.
started, they planted that giant cornfield so they could make it for real and flatten it and make so it's like a real crop circle that they made, and it pays off because it looks really good.
It looks so good, and I'm happy that we get to it so close to the beginning instead of like, what's the build up to whatever this sign's gonna be? Like, it's just like, okay, here we've established we have the crop circle. Now let's get to the rest of the movie. Like, I really like that there was not too much build up there. That it was pretty quick.
And M. Night grew up in Pennsylvania, as far as I know, not in like a huge major city. But this movie feels very much like the locale is so important. Because I think they mentioned at some point that they're like not super far from Philly, because they're talking about
Yeah, it's like 40, there's the title card says like 45 minutes from Philly. I think.
yeah. And the rural sort of Pennsylvania feel, the small town, like when the crop circles happen, he's like convinced it's like just some shitty drunk weird like loser.
Yeah, that it's I think it's Lionel Pritchard and the
Yes.
Wolfington Brothers.
Yes.
And I wrote down that's my favorite band. I love Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington Brothers.
So for the people who maybe need a refresher, haven't seen this movie, the plot is pretty simple. You have people living in a rural area in like 2002. So this is before cell phones, but as I noted from watching the movie, right when you had the wireless home phones. This family and the entire world ends up being raided, I think is the word that ends up being used, by what are essentially grays, like classic aliens. They first plant the signs, and then they do a coordinated attack.
Yeah, it's theorized that the signs, the crop circles, are like navigational beacons for them.
And they have some kind of like frequency signals that they're using to coordinate when they're around, because they use like the
baby monitor.
monitor to follow that. And so the story is fairly simple. It's like, as far as the A plot is concerned, it's that these aliens are basically sieging this family.
And it's like, and in terms
They're
of even what happens,
playing with them.
it's like they're at the farm. At one point, they go into town, and then they come back to the farm, and that's basically it. And then he goes to M. Night
Right.
Shyamalan's house and back, and that's like,
and we have some
it.
flashbacks.
Yes,
But
yeah, and that's it for the plot. It's just like they get raided, they get repelled, and there's maybe a crisis of faith that perhaps gets resolved. So I don't know. Stay
It's very
tuned.
subtle.
Yes. No, I actually love that it's so not subtle. It's just so direct. Everything is just so direct and explicit.
I love
Like,
it.
It's not clunky. It's like elegantly simple, I feel.
On M. Night Shyamalan's Wikipedia page, it talks about, which almost makes me feel like he wrote this part, because it seems
I
so
hope he
like
did.
something he or his family would write, where it's like he went to Catholic school and then Episcopal school, and it says on there, not saying he wrote this, but that he annoyed the teachers in his religion class because he got the best grades in religion class despite not being Christian, like being one of the few kids in because he said he felt like an outsider. Again, probably him or someone close to
Yeah.
him wrote that.
Well, and apparently his Wikipedia page said that he was born in India and then raised in small town Pennsylvania. So,
But like from when he was like 6 weeks
yeah,
old or something.
right.
So like he's...
But just that may, his parents probably had accents. That's what I mean. It's like there were reasons why
yeah.
he would feel like an outcast.
Yeah.
He was probably
at
like
his
the
school.
one brown kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Is my assumption when I hear like private school in like probably semi-rural like Pennsylvania, not exactly famous for being a bastion of diverse acceptance.
No,
No.
but
I haven't fact checked that, so
not yet.
yeah.
But yeah, I do find that interesting because I'm what you, or at least my mom calls a cradled Episcopalian, meaning I've been an Episcopalian from birth, whatever. And I am so bad about, I don't know what's going on. And I just kind of go and I'm like, I like my songs. I like my meditation.
Right.
And you could tell me, I know when Easter is. I know when Christmas is. And the rest of it has different terms. And I don't know.
Oh, I know. Well, in Catholicism, I remember watching Midnight Mass, and she'd be like, "Father, it's the third Sunday of Ordinary Time," and I was like, I remember
The
hearing these
fuck?
things, but I just couldn't tell you what it means.
I feel like what a good move on his part to be like, yeah, you think I'm not, like, I can't do this, or I'm not, like, whatever from birth. I'm not like you people, but I can ace this. I know this stuff. Like,
Oh yeah, I was the best in my college religion class at my Methodist university that I went to. And I was the favorite of the professor, but also I think some of it was nominative determinism, as they say.
Oh.
Because my last name is Bodhi, which I've said on the pod. And Bodhi, like Bodhi, is like the Bodhi tree, or like the Bodhisattva, which is like an enlightened being. So he just thought he was like, I can tell you're enlightened by your name. And I was like, I don't know if that's how it works, but I will accept this A on behalf of my GPA.
yes, please. Thank you.
You should have been, it's pronounced Baudet. All y'all Christians are the same to me, but I do think it's weird that probably my favorite Christian movie is this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's up there for me.
It's this
But
and
like it.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, this is
Right,
Superstar
yeah,
and
yeah.
like The Exorcist for me, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I do like The Exorcist as well. So yeah, that's kind of the basic plot. And then Signs has a double meaning where they're the literal crop circles, and the whole movie is about like these, is it fate? Is there purpose to the world, or is it just chaos?
Yeah, which I like that almost like, even though it has such explicit religious overtones, in terms of the actual themes, it's more about that. It's more about just like, is there order or is it all chaos? And then
Right.
it's like, you can ascribe your own meaning to which you think it is. But that's what like the central conflict is of like, is there someone looking out for us? Like, is there an overall guiding principle, or is it just shit that happens?
Well, like, I think about people in my everyday life and how, sorry, specifically mom, who...
Mom talk episode
Mom
2.
talk. It brings her a lot of joy to find the meaning, and it helps give her drive, and I feel like that's true for a lot of people. So whether it is, things were meant to be, it is designed, or not, like, if people can find something from it, like, that's a nice thing too. Even though I'm still like Mel Gibson or whatever your name was in the movie.
I
I
called him
don't
Gibby
think
in my
Gibby.
notes.
Okay, Gibby.
Oh, he's just
Gibby
Daddy.
Boo. Oh, Daddy.
In my notes.
We can say, I don't know
His
if I
name
go
is-
Reverend
calling
Daddy,
him
Priest Daddy.
His name is Father Daddy.
Okay, Father Daddy. But I'm like, the stretch for me, jumping to the end, was I was like, this is why your son has asthma. I'm still trying to find the meaning why I have asthma. I don't think it was from future poison, but maybe.
You can't know that.
I can't know that. That's true.
So
that was a stretch for me.
So
That
you're
one.
Morgan, because you have asthma.
Yes.
This was one of my big notes. I actually have contamination OCD where I am constantly assuming
learned
there's
this
something
recently.
wrong with my water.
It's contaminated.
That's me. Literally, I am contamination water child.
Oh, so you're Abigail Breslin.
I'm Abigail Breslin. What's her name? Like Bo or something?
Yeah, it's Bo.
So I'm Bo, which means you can choose. You're either Father Daddy, who lost his faith because his wife got cut in half. By the way, that's for the people who haven't seen this movie.
I wish you'd stop talking about my personal trauma on this podcast.
You can be,
I'm just recovering from my wife
Your
being
wife.
cut in half.
or you could be wife who's cut in half, or you can be For some reason,
Cherry Jones.
the guy whose big trauma is that he's like kind of shit at baseball, but also good at baseball.
I think
Yeah.
that's me.
Okay.
I think I'm more
You're Joaquin Phoenix.
in this movie.
So there you go. We're the cast of Signs.
We
You're such a
are.
hero. You saved me. Thank you.
You are so
Despite my
welcome.
asthma.
I mean, it's funny because it's like, this is why he has asthma. It's like, he's like 10. He's going to have this his whole life.
Right.
Yes.
The reason he probably has asthma is because a lot of people had asthma back then because they were like cooking with like gas stoves and had asbestos in the walls. But no,
Right.
yes, it was God who did it. So yeah, so that's like to just kind of go through the characters. You have Father Daddy, played by Mel Gibson.
Whose wife died 6 months ago.
And that made him lose his faith. And not just lose his faith, but like hate religion.
Right,
Yeah.
and he left the church. He's like, everyone keeps calling him father. He says, don't call me father.
Call
To
me-
And they're like,
everyone.
Call
okay,
me
father.
Daddy.
Call me daddy.
That's a different podcast.
Call me father daddy.
And then the daughter has contamination OCD, but just for water. She has glasses of water everywhere in the house. So do I. Then
So do I.
there's then there's Rory.
Morgan.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rory
Morgan.
Culkin.
He has asthma, and then Joaquin Phoenix is Father Daddy's brother. So
5 minor league baseball records, but he also had the minor league strikeout record. Because
Mm-hmm.
the guy's like, why aren't you in the majors getting your toes licked by beautiful
Oh,
women?
I have that.
I wrote
in
that
my,
down. I
in my
wrote that
list of
down.
quotes.
I imagined that we all would, so I thought I'd beat you guys to the punch.
Why aren't you getting your toes licked by beautiful women?
Yep.
Is something that the Army recruiter says out loud in a room with 2 other people in it.
And I laughed out loud.
I think I threw up in my mouth.
Yeah.
This movie is so funny.
I know. There was actually so many things that I laughed out loud just watching it by myself, and I was like, I don't even remember it being this funny, but
Can I read you some of my favorite quotes from this movie?
Please.
Okay, so when they think that the Wolf brothers?
the Wolfington brothers.
when they-
Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers.
when they think Lionel Pritchard is on their roof because it's their
Yes.
first time like seeing the alien, and
Great
he's-
scare there.
It's
too,
such
by
a
the
good
way,
scare because it's like a silhouette far away. And that's another smart thing is CGI was kind of dog shit in 2002. And so a lot of times they would hide it with like shadows and things like that. And Joaquin Phoenix is like, let's scare him by running around cursing.
Oh my god, this shit was so funny. It
was great.
And Mel Gibson goes, I'm insane with anger. I'm losing my mind.
And then he says, like, I'm gonna kick your ass. No, he said, I'm gonna give you an ass whooping.
Yes.
And he says whooping. And then he goes, and then they meet up. He beats back up with Joaquin Phoenix. He
cursed.
says, I cursed. And his brother goes, I heard. And it's so good. I'm insane with anger.
And so there's funny ones like that, and the why aren't you getting your toes licked by beautiful women? And then he has another great one later where he goes, everyone in this house needs to calm down, eat some fruit or something.
He's right. He's right.
He has another one where he goes, how could you possibly know that information when he's learning about the aliens?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. What else did it say?
Yes. I know, it was so good. And then the cut to, so first the kids are wearing the tinfoil hats.
Yes, yes.
And then when he comes home, they're still sitting there, but they're on either side of Joaquin Phoenix, who's now also wearing a
was
tinfoil
great.
hat.
That's when my husband looked at me and he said, that's you. And I was like, yes.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so funny.
The movie was so funny, but then there's also these really effective lines. So, like when the daughter says, "Are you in my dream too?" And then like
I wrote that one
TV
down.
plays a huge role in this movie because
Yeah.
they're so
Yes, it
isolated,
does.
right?
Yeah.
Like they are out on this farm, and there's something to be said about like horror movies where it's in the middle of a big city. Like I do love my favorite subgenre, which is people running through the streets screaming while something is chasing them. I love that, but I also really like that feeling of isolation and no one's coming to help you
Me too.
that this movie evokes. And so there's like one line where he's like, okay, let's turn on the TV. Was a really good
Yeah,
one.
that was.
So a scene I really like that has one of my favorite quotes from the movie because I think it's so emblematic of it is when Father Daddy is like, let's all eat our favorite foods. And they just like pan across the kitchen, which is like a chaos, like war zone. And they're all sitting there with their favorite foods and no one is hungry.
They're
and no
so
one wants to
anxious. They're so miserable, but they've got like mashed potatoes and
Yeah.
French toast and spaghetti and
like chicken stir fry
Yeah.
and a big hamburger with bacon. And then at one point, the kids are like, let's say a prayer. And he's like, no prayers. And he starts breaking down. And then
he's like, well, if you aren't going to eat all this food, then I'm going to eat it. And he like puts everything on his plate and he's like furiously like eating and then he like starts to cry.
But before that, Morgan goes, I hate you. And he says, that's fine. Because this movie really is also about, like, him being a father. Like,
Yeah.
he's such a good father daddy. Because even in that one moment where he's being kind of a bad dad, he immediately breaks down and the kids know that he's not serious.
Yeah, because
Was
then
that the group
'cause
hug?
he starts crying and then Morgan, who he's had the most like conflict with throughout the movie, is the one to go over and hug him. And then Bo runs in and they're hugging and Joaquin Phoenix is just kind of sitting there and Father Daddy like reaches over and physically like grabs Joaquin Phoenix and brings him into the group hug. And that is when I was getting a little misty-eyed. That was very sweet.
I think my eyes leaked a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I cried
I loved that scene.
at that scene. And then when you first have Morgan having his asthma attack in the basement, and he's just like, there's just this long scene of him holding his son's chest, trying to get him to breathe. And it's just, a lot of this movie also, because you were talking about really good shots and just expertise filmmaking, where you see things that you're not really seeing. Like, the camera will be focused on Joaquin Phoenix's face, just him reacting to something. Or like when the dog, Isabel, dies, and it's just slow panning into the wall.
Yes, and you like hear her whimpering and then like the whimpering stops.
Up until the very end, so much of it is about what you don't see.
I think it's time for an ad break.
Let's hawk some shit.
So, this episode is brought to you by the literature on the walls of your gastroenterologist's medical room. How's the acid reflux? Got hemorrhoids? Is your butt okay? I don't know. You tell me, doctor, and I don't want to be sitting here for 15 minutes thinking about the various things that could be done to me.
Consider the concept of hemorrhoids.
Consider it. And, I don't want to consider that diagram of whatever that was shooting up into a butt. But just so you know, I didn't need any of that. But I was nervous about it. And that's it. That's what this is brought to you by.
Being surrounded by graphic images of buttholes being probed, I think that's
Yes.
perfect for a film about aliens raiding people.
That's right.
Very good. Yeah, we like to try to tie in our ad reads like to the themes of the film.
Or it's fate, and it was all there for a reason. You had to go see the gastroenterologist or whatever they're
God
called.
put those buttholes there for you to learn from.
Well, the good news is it was more about my upper tract, and my acid reflux is getting better. Thank you.
All right, well, on that note, we'll see you after the break. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your gastroenterologist pamphlets. We didn't give you an offer code, so you paid full
no.
price,
Yep.
and now you have them to look at. So good for you. Speaking of signs,
That was the third secret sign. Meaning. So yeah, let's now talk about, besides the amazing dialogue in this movie, the other thing that really makes it stand out, and I would say stand the test of time, is the masterful scares. Let's talk about some of these scares. So the first one is probably the dog.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say so. So it's like Mel Gibson and Cherry Jones are out looking at the crop circles. The two kids are trying to give the sick dog, he peed inside, so they took him outside, trying to give him some water. But was like, it's contaminated. And Rory's like, well, he licks his own butthole, so I don't think he'll mind. But so she goes to dump the water, and the dog growls at her very aggressively. And they're clearly both freaked out because that doesn't happen.
And these are German Shepherds.
Yeah, they're big, scary dogs. And then it cuts back to Mel Gibson and the father daddy excuse me, in the cornfield.
Get his
thank you.
name
And she says,
right.
"Is there something wrong, Father?" And he said, "Don't call me Father, because I can't hear my children."
Is that what he said?
Yes,
Oh.
that is what he says.
I thought he said, "Don't call me father." I thought he said, Oh, maybe you're right.
You think? Watch me be so wrong and then be such a cunt about it. But yeah, anyway, something to that effect. And then he runs to find the kids, and Bo is up like in the play pen thing, like up in the top. It's like sitting there, and Morgan, Rory Culkin, is on the ground with Houdini dead in front of him. He has had to stab the dog with the there's like grill.
Yeah,
There's
little
like
fork.
some prongs. Yeah, there's some
Yeah,
forks for
prongs.
the grill, and so we don't see the act of violence, but we like find it, and it's like the tension of like, why don't I hear my kids? The tension's already been built with like the dog growling, and then we don't see what happens next.
Yeah.
So he's like, I had to get him. Like he was trying to hurt Bo.
He fell on me.
Yeah, he fell on me, and then they're walking in. Bo is like I think Houdini's sick. Like she doesn't grasp that like he's dead.
Yeah.
It's scary, like because you don't see like until you see the end result, and then it becomes just like so tragic, and it's just like a further like loss of innocence for these kids.
Yeah.
Like they've already had to deal with their mom dying, and now it's like poor Morgan has like had to like kill his dog.
And it also establishes early on that he's super protective of his sister.
Yes,
Which
and
is important.
as he's at the grill, he's like, "Dad's gonna burn these again."
Yep.
And to me, that really showed like how much Morgan has had to become a parent to Bo and also to his father, which happens a lot.
Presumably within the past 6 months.
Exactly.
I was already bitching about that part. As soon as that happened, I was like, this kid's having to barbecue his own chicken with
Right, this,
this
like,
thing.
8-year-old or whatever.
And like I was actively complaining about that when the rest of it went down. I was like, oh no, thank God he was taking care of the chicken and had the fork, the prongs. Yeah, I feel like a lot of meaning was put in like 2 minutes?
Yeah, because all the characters' reactions are so perfectly emblematic of their characters, how they all react to this situation. And yeah, it's just very good, like concise
In the
storytelling.
lead up before, the dog's sick. Call the doctor. Well, we can't call him. We can't call him, because it was M. Night Shyamalan, right?
Oh.
Oh, I think you're right.
Because at first I was like, the
No, 'cause
doctor. He doesn't do dogs. Then I was like, oh, vets are doctors.
Yeah.
I thought it was a different guy. No, it was a different guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember, because what they say is like he doesn't treat dogs. Like because they was like, call the doctor. He doesn't treat dogs. Oh well, he'll be able to help.
M. Night might have been the vet.
Because I
That
think
would
that
make-
was
I think
it.
that is
Because
it.
he didn't want to call the vet
Yeah.
Right. So he
for
called
later
yeah.
reasons.
And our next scare is the silhouette on the roof. The Wolfington brothers are
Yes.
on the roof, y'all.
But yeah, so that moment, so they're talking in bed. She's like, "There's a monster outside." He's like, "Okay," and they're talking and whatever. And then he kind of drifts off. He looks over, and there's a shot in a musical staying of that silhouette on the roof, and it scared the mess out of me
Yep.
in the theaters as a kid.
It's very scary. And then, of course, whenever there's a scare, they break up the tension because then they call the police again, and Cherry Jones is like, "It could have been a woman. Maybe it's an Olympic jumper on your roof."
Hold on, I wrote down the quote because it's so funny. This is another amazing. Oh, she says, "They got these Scandinavian women who can jump clean over me," and I said, "Gay." Gay. This lady is gay
Oh, yeah.
for Scandinavian high jumpers, and God bless her for it.
And aren't we all? And I also love that Joaquin Phoenix apologizes and was like, "I wasn't thinking of the Scandinavian professional athlete."
And now he always will.
I love that that's like the fantasy too, is like they're jumping over her.
Hey, don't yuck her yum.
I'm not. I'm fully here for it.
This
It's
is
just
a
very funny.
Pro kink podcast. Our next scare is a TV scare because there are a lot of TV scares in this.
Yes.
There's the same show on every station. Is when you first find out
Right.
this is
Yeah.
not isolated to them.
Right, because it's happening in the background. She's like, "Where's the remote?" He's like, "Check under the couch." She comes back. She's like, "There's only food under the couch." And Cherry Jones is still there. So Father Daddy's like, "Oh God, how embarrassing." He's like, "Well, just change the channel on the TV." And she's like, "I can't. It's the same show on every channel." And that's when they're all like, "Oh,
They turn into Tim Allen,
yes." You don't
another
remember that?
problematic person.
You guys need to pay more attention to the movie, all right?
And then we have another in-person scare where we see Leg in the Corn.
I
We've got
love Leg in the Corn.
Leg in the Corn.
The flashlight starts fucking. He like, drops it and turns off. So he like finds it is like tapping it against his hand to get it to work again.
And he is chasing after something. He
Yeah.
does not know.
And it finally turns on. He turns, and that's when you see the leg just like the alien has just walked into the next row of corn. And
Like,
it
those
is so scary.
Aliens are fucking with them.
Yes.
Just being so playful in a menacing way.
They really
Like,
are.
they're having fun.
Right. Well, they knock over the trash can in that first scene where they're running around the building, and that's how Joaquin knows that like he was right on his heels at first.
And it hits the swing set as it jumps off the roof
That's
back
what
into
it
the
was.
corn.
Yeah. So you like see the path it took, even though you didn't see it running,
Yeah.
because the swing set is still swinging. And I was like, that's so smart because it's so creepy.
It's so creepy.
And our next scare, I literally just took down these scares because they're so good.
I love it.
Is the Morgan gets a book.
Oh.
The Doctor, what was it? Doctor like.
Dr. Bimbu.
Dr.
And I was like, that's a meta
Bimbu.
joke from M. Night about people making fun of his name.
Is it really?
That's how it read to me. Because people were like, Shyamalan ding dong.
Yeah.
If you were alive in 2002, you heard that one a lot. Because
pretty
people
rude.
didn't want to know how to say his name. Especially great because Mel Gibson was the one who was making fun of the name Dr. Bimbu. So I don't know. That's how it came across to me. It was M. Night kind of being like, these names aren't that complicated. And they're just
Right.
names,
They're
guys.
just names.
Right.
So Dr. Bimbu's book has a bunch of information in it. And
Very specific.
I also
Yes.
do love that this is like a crank book. Like
Yeah.
this is not a real book, but the heightened level of fear is making them more willing to like listen and look and like be amenable to these things. So he's looking at the book his kids got because another thing I want to say about this movie to quickly derail is I love the kids in this, not only because they act like kids, but they're smart and useful, but they're not annoying too smart kids.
Yes, they're not super precocious. They're just like normal, smart kids.
They are kids who get money to go buy a book. Like, there's a scene where he's trying to distract the kids and they go into town and he just gives them money to go buy a book. And, like, these are kids who get book money, you know? And so they have this book that they're reading together and Dr. Bimbu's book, and Mel Gibson's trying to be a good dad. He's trying to listen to them.
And not shut them down.
And not shut them down and, like,
But it's
Morgan-
obvious he thinks that it's stupid.
Yeah, but Morgan calls him out on it because he's also the parent now, even though he's like 8. And there's this really effective scene where they're just turning the pages, and then there's a farmhouse on fire that looks like their house, and there are just dead bodies
Yes.
out front.
Yes. And even Bo is like, he's like, Father Daddy's like, that looks kind of like our house. And Bo's like, it has the same windows.
It's just on fire with like a
There's
UFO.
like a flying saucer with like a ray shooting at it, the house on fire, and there's like, I think 3 figures just like lying on the ground. Like clearly just like
And the
dead.
3 of them are just sitting there staring at it. And it's like, that's such a good little scare. So you have these scares that are like in front of them, and then you have these scares that are sort of like on the TV or in the books. And I really liked how they're kind of spread out that way, because I do think what you believe is such an important theme
Yeah.
in this movie.
And also how that belief is influenced by the media you consume, which I would say that is
Yeah.
definitely in there because it's all like their paranoia mounts from books and TV.
That's not relevant to today. I have
Stop
something about that. Oh, sorry. Huh? What?
You don't think it's good to get all of your news from
No, I think it's
social media?
I think that's exactly how you should get it.
We condone it on this podcast. Get more social media time.
But yes, baby monitor, because I also have something to say about it.
Okay, yeah, so it was perfectly set up because Cherry Jones, Lady Cop, is over, and Morgan is clearly fascinated by her walkie-talkie. He's like looking at it. She's like, well, you know, like I can see if I can round up one for you at the station, an old one. But in the meantime, a baby monitor will work just as well. It's just a one-way walkie-talkie. So he like goes, I guess, has gone to the basement and dug it up. But like, he doesn't just happen to have a baby monitor. It's because he saw her radio and wanted to like emulate that.
Yeah.
And that's why he
And-
has the monitor with him.
And he's curious, and he thinks critically. Again, smart kid, but not annoying, unrealistic smart kid. Like, he's industrious because he's had to be. He's had to
Right.
step up.
Yes. It's like a trauma response more so than like he's just a precocious,
Yeah.
like genius kid. But yeah, so that's when they come back from town, I think. The 4 of them in the car back from town. And the baby monitor starts making some weird noises. And there's an extended scene of like the signal gets stronger as I go higher. So they're getting out of the car, and then as they like touch each other, the signal gets stronger. It's almost like their bodies are like conduits to the signal. And like Morgan's up on the top of the car, and eventually there's a chain. The family, each one is touching the next one, like from Father Daddy on the ground all the way to Morgan, like standing on the car with Joaquin Phoenix like holding him steady. And the signal becomes so crystal clear, and Morgan's like, I think there's two of them.
Yeah.
And that build all the way to that line, and then the signal just like stops.
Right after that, thank you for that whole build up, because I was right back in it again.
Oh, good.
Loved it. No,
thought
that
you were
wasn't
being
sassy. No, I meant it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for that.
Because, like, right at the end of that scene, my baby monitor went off, and I screamed hearing my kid. I was like, ah! And so that was it. But yeah, it was, all the baby monitor stuff was freaking me out, because I'm always low-key, like, I don't want to hear something that's not my child.
Yep.
And I don't want to look on the monitor and see something that's a ghost.
Right.
Because you see those things. And I've not seen paranormal activity, and I don't, only for the pod, and I hope that's a long way away if that ever happens. But I'm like always kind of waiting. Oh God, oh no.
Brett and I exchanging mischievous looks. I wasn't considering it, but now.
Because I'm always like on the lookout just in case. I'm like, is there some creepy ghost that I'm going to have to go in there? But that's aside. Sorry.
Don't worry. There's only like 7 of those movies, and only half of them involve baby monitors. So you'll be just fine.
So I wouldn't necessarily, like, that's a scare in the sense that it's a very creepy moment. But it adds so much to the ratcheting tension as we like head into the final like act of the movie.
I loved it.
And the next scare, if I'm remembering correctly, is the big famous one. It's the TV.
I think that's right.
Scare
yes, it is.
at the Brazilian birthday party.
Yes, which is maybe the most famous scare. Like one of the 2 most famous scares from like that half of the decade. It's like that and the girl from The Ring, like in the closet.
Oh yeah.
Are like the 2 like most famous scare moments.
The Aughts was not known for quality horror movies.
And yet,
but it has some bangers.
There's some amazing ones, so whatever.
Yeah, and the scare is so efficient. It's like found footage type style, which Brett and I love.
Yes, and so Joaquin Phoenix is like, I guess he's not allowed to like watch TV in front of the kids at this point because he's like in the
it was his
closet.
decision to move it to the closet because there's another funny line where he's saying the kids might become obsessed.
Oh, that's right.
And all they're gonna do is watch it, and it's him just like red-eyed, 5 feet from the TV.
He's been watching it all night, like in the like cupboard under the stairs.
But there was like footage that's been replaying like on the news, which is the first, I think, like full body sort of clear shot that we see of the aliens.
Yeah,
at
so
this
before that, all we've really seen is like there were lights over some cities, then the lights
Silhouettes.
go out, and then in the daytime they see a bird flying over like Mexico City, and it's like it hits an invisible wall, and then that bird is found like with its head crushed from like the impact. So we're like, the ships are still there.
Loved seeing that shit because, to be honest, like I don't know how much back to our news in 2024, how much they would cover, but I'm like, if this stuff's happening, I want to see that stuff. I want to know what you're figuring out.
Did you miss when the Pentagon was just
No, I
releasing?
sure didn't. I sure didn't miss that. I sure did look into it a lot.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure
And
they've
then
now
I
just said
wiped
there's
my brain a little bit.
UAPs.
Is there more to tell me about?
Oh, I mean,
Are they in this room?
oh, I think it's all like a government sort of distraction, psyop, but
I
I'm
mean, probably.
somehow even crazier than the alien people. So, but yeah, no, like I think it also just harkens back to how news was, where they would just replay some loop. Everything is so on fire now that
Yeah, there's no more looping because they're on to the next huge crisis.
it's like, remember when there were killer bees? Remember when there was a plague that killed like 1 million people?
Someone was like, remember when all of Australia was on fire? And I was like, I actually forgot.
Yeah.
But yes, I do remember now that I'm reminded.
Like if that's like the meme now is that like if the aliens show up, it's just like, ugh, get in line.
Right. And I'll have forgotten about it in like a month.
Like I have a lot going on, aliens.
Right.
Like can you
come back later? Like you should have come earlier or you'll have to come back later. Now's no good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the TV stuff has been ratcheting up the tension to where we're really ready. The audience is really ready for maximum like freaked out for this Brazilian birthday party footage.
And it's so effective because they've been writing off, or at least I will say, Father Daddy has been writing off all the stuff he has seen with his own fucking eyes, because he is
Right.
such a skeptic now that he like cannot believe it. But when you're seeing it maybe through this lens of media and it's happening to other people and they're affirming it, it maybe feels more real. Like maybe it isn't Lionel Richie and the Wolf Brothers.
Yes, right. Right, because the TV's now like, there's crop circles all over in India. Lionel Richie and the Wolf Brothers. Michael Showalter as Lionel Richie. It's a biopic we need.
So that's like the most famous is just this quick shot of an
Yes, so-
alien walking just across like an alleyway. You just see it so briefly and then it like pauses.
Yeah.
And
The
it's
kids are in
just-
the window. They're like, oh, it's behind. And then it just walks over and like looks at the camera as it crosses. And then they rewind to play it again. And this time they pause it. And the aliens just like have this malevolent glare as it's just like standing at the end of the alley. And Joaquin Phoenix is like, he's like thrown himself back into the coats because he's so shocked and horrified. And his reaction also really sells it. Also, I've always remembered he's like, move children, vamonos. I'm like, bro, it's Brazil. But they're
Hello,
not speaking
Portuguese.
Spanish, buddy. Yeah.
He's kind of a dumbass.
Yes.
Which I love.
Me too.
And they were taping over all of his like
Oh,
moody.
Oh yeah, because Morgan's trying to tape over Bo's dance recital.
Morgan, get another tape.
And Morgan's like, Uncle Merrill, I'm taping over your stuff, and it just says like swimsuit special. Just putting the tape in.
And he's like, no, my important video.
That he presumably just watches.
My dance recital.
That he presumably just watches on like family VCR.
Yeah, but
Brings
he
it
rolls
to the closet.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh,
for
gross.
privacy.
Yeah, it's his masturbation.
He's
den.
very used to this room.
Yeah. It has a certain odor to it.
His goon cave.
But even I, who it turns out had not seen this movie before, had seen that clip of the
Yeah.
alien. So
It's very, very famous and
It's-
very effective.
One of the best jump scares of like our lifetime.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the next jump scare also is one that stuck with me is when
The pantry.
yes, so Father Daddy gets a call from M. Night, who had killed
Ray Reddy.
Ray Reddy, who had killed his wife accidentally.
He was not even driving drunk. He was driving
Sleepy.
exhausted.
Sleep
And like
deprived.
fell asleep at the wheel.
Yep.
And hit this guy's wife.
Yeah, he
We don't know the details yet, I think, at this point. But
right. Well,
But we know that.
We know that he killed the wife and that the family is trying to avoid him, but like they can't be like mad at him, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where it's so hard.
yes.
Is like, and also Father Daddy is like the guy in town that everybody looked up to, and like he's trying to hold it together. It's so good, y'all. This movie's so fucking good.
I know.
And like Ray is like, I've had your phone number next to my phone because I've been meaning to call you, and I just haven't been able to do it. And then when the fucking alien goes in his house, he's like, I didn't know who else to call.
Right, yes, because he had called him and then hung up. But then I guess Father Daddy was like, oh, that must have been Ray Reddy. I'm going to go over there.
Yeah.
And then he sees Ray in his car and goes up and talks to him. And that's when Ray's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know who else to call. Like,
And he's like blood on him.
yeah, and all his stuff's in the back. He's like packed and ready to go somewhere.
And he just knows that they don't like water. And he's like, I'm outie.
I'm going to the lake. And he was just like, this actually is amazing. Because he's like, I think that one of the last things he says before he drives away is like, I'm really sorry for what I've done to you and yours. And Mel Gibson's reaction,
He's trying to hold it in.
he's trying so hard to hold it in, but he's obviously having such a hard time.
Yeah.
And just the way he plays it, where he's like looking away and kind of like has to take a breath. And then he's like,
Well, because when he's
Okay.
around his family, he'll like yell at them for like bringing up anything that reminds him of his wife. Like he's so traumatized. And then this guy who like did it
Yeah.
and
but
is
also
like,
was not.
And he knows this guy is also completely traumatized and broken by it.
Right.
Like, also broken.
Oh, it's just such a human thing where it's like, it's not good guys and bad guys. It's just
Yeah.
like people in just really awful, traumatic, interlocking experiences. And they could never get on the same page, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was really beautifully done. But yeah, so then he's like, all right, going to the lake.
Don't-
Meet me. Bye.
don't look in my pantry.
Yeah. Yeah, so I goes, don't look at the pantry. Bye.
So we've got to go
Megan's
look in the
let's
pantry.
go see what's in that pantry, though.
And we have another really funny scene where
yeah.
I do love it when amazing actors, because look, we can hate Mel Gibson as a person, but he's such a fucking great actor.
Agreed.
And I love when great actors pretend to be bad actors in movies. And he's like, I'm the police, and we have them in the paddy
Oh, yeah,
wagon.
took him downstairs in the paddy wagon, and then he
Paddy
looks away and
wagon.
he's like, mouths, he's like, paddy wagon? Like, why the fuck did I say that?
It's great.
And he's like, just say what you did, son, and we'll give you the same deal we gave the other ones. And he's like, and he's just talking to this like fucking alien that's just like probably just like quietly there, like
Yes.
I
camouflaging
hope
in.
the alien was like, paddy wagon? Like, what the fuck, dude?
You cheese dick. What are you saying?
And so he picks up a knife off the counter to use to look under the pantry.
I love that.
Then
It's
thinks,
I was so scared.
then thinks better of it and is like, no, this is stupid. Puts it on the counter. A great shot of him, like, as he's walking away, he's like through the doorway about to leave. He stops and he's like, no, I have to see it. And he goes back, he immediately just picks it up and he's using it to look under the door. You like see some cans, whatever, yeah, and then there's just a hand that reaches out. And he freaks out and just chops with the knife and chops off like
Two fingers.
two of his fingers, I think. And that's like the end of the scene.
Can I say something fucked up?
Yeah.
I would
No.
absolutely.
Oh.
Okay, never mind. I'll leave.
For this podcast?
I would have taken those fingers and been like, I fucking found one, y'all. Like, is that weird? If it was a human being, no.
Oh, I would
But
have taken the fingers.
alien.
I never would have gone to the pantry, so.
Oh, well, there's that. I wouldn't have gone in the
Brett
house.
I would have.
I wouldn't have been in the house. But if
But
I
also-
would have at least taken a picture if it was
Yeah.
this.
I
A
would like to
picture with
say,
what?
No, if it was now. But
Okay.
back then, I would have had to take the fingers.
I get it, kind of.
But yeah, he cuts off those fingers. He goes home. And again, you have Uncle Merrill, Joaquin Phoenix, is glued to the TV. And then the kids, presumably Morgan has decided to do the dishes, is what I assume.
Yeah.
Is that like he is just the parent,
Yeah.
but he is also entertaining Bo, and they're having like a little water fight. And then Morgan realizes like his dad is just sitting like catatonic, like at the table. And now we believe. And then we have like a family vote, which is so cute.
Oh yeah.
And that's like the end of that scare. So they stay, and now we are under siege. Because like our next big sort of set piece is the family dinner.
Yeah.
And then
after they've like boarded up the windows, I think.
Yes, and they intend to bring
Like
in
some of
Isabel,
them.
but they run out of time because the lights go out. And now we are under siege. They're trying to like, they have too many windows. They're trying to like board up the house.
Yeah, they have to board up the doors upstairs. They finally get it done, like last second. They're downstairs, and then they see up the stairs and they're like, we forgot the attic door.
Yeah.
And that's when they have to flee
They
into
just-
the basement because they're like, well, all this boarding is for nothing because like
They can just get in
they
through
can just
the
get
attic.
in. Yeah.
So yeah, then we're just like under siege in the basement, and there's some great scares there. They're being smart. They're creating a distraction at one door to try to get in another
They're
way.
banging on the door, but then there's like, wait, they used to shovel coal in this cellar. Where's the coal chute?
And then it just turns, and it's like little Culkin standing in front, and then the arms just come. It's
No.
Like grab him, and yeah,
good.
it's so freaky.
But then it just pans away, and all you see is like little Abigail Breslin, like in a corner, the light. There's some great shots from just like the ground and like POV shots, because I think we're getting POV from like the flashlight or something. And then we now have little boy having asthma attack, and then he falls asleep. So like, and then the movie we end. We have the whatever.
Brush over the
And
climax
it's done.
of the movie.
Whatever. The
No,
movie's
I'm
done.
shutting that down. You're not gonna brush over the actual climax of the fucking movie.
Is the climax when so he has
It
his
all comes together now.
so we finally see his
The movie
wife.
ends or whatever. You're
Ends or
fired.
whatever. All
The
that.
asthma, the bat.
Guys, we need to calm down and eat some fruit or something.
Oh, you're right.
Shit,
You're
you know
right.
what? You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he
They've
goes,
listened to the radio. They have heard that the aliens have left. Some people found a way to fight them.
and we realize his wife has like prophetically said in her last dying breath, like, swing away, Meryl.
Yeah, she tells Father Daddy to see, and then she said, tell Meryl to swing away.
And he had written it off as like synapses misfiring.
Yeah, he says that earlier. He's like, because there is no rhyme or reason. She just said it because her brain just like glitched to a memory of his baseball game.
Yeah. But then like the alien whose fingers had been cut off is back for revenge, and he grabs Morgan and is gonna. We've learned that they spray poison.
Yes,
that
he's
there's-
got a weird little like finger appendage from his wrist that like sprays poison.
Yeah, and there's like
It's
great
not cute.
scenes of them like camouflaging about stuff that's around them, which I like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of this has really at least been well set up because we know that the bat is on the wall because the army recruiter scene, he's like, oh, you still have that lucky bat? And he's like, yeah, it's at home on the wall.
And it is.
And it is, and that's what he uses to swing away.
And then we need all the glasses of water
Right.
around the house.
Because the aliens that are somehow on this planet that is mostly moisture. But
Right.
look, multiple times they reference like War of the Worlds, and it's very much
Exactly.
like War of the
Germs
It's the
Worlds.
same,
or
yes,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
Because War
It's
of
like
the
they're beaten by a
Worlds has,
simple thing. Also, I don't know, that like that level of like plot hole, that was one of the earliest like iterations I can personally remember of people being like, oh, that's a plot hole because like we have water in our atmosphere, so like obviously they know that like they shouldn't be here. But I'm like, also it's established in the movie that their planet is fucked and they're desperate, and this is like they're just trying to do, and this is probably a last ditch effort. Then people are like, oh, I fixed it because if you see the aliens as demons, and this is all in a crisis of faith thing, then the water works because like it's in the minister's house and it's holy water.
Oh, shut up, nerds.
When I'm like, okay, it's art. Like it's kind of both. Like it's just like your interpretation. I don't need it to be.
Yeah.
No, it's only aliens. No, it's only demons. It's like, y'all, it's a movie.
Just
like it's
enjoy
just,
it.
or like it can mean any
Enjoy
of
the
these things, but
story.
you don't need to like fix the plot hole with this other, I don't know, interpretation. I just
It
kinda
has
think
to
that's
be
stupid.
contaminated water. As deemed by a mentally ill little girl who will get to enjoy her mental illness with that her whole life.
Yes, but like all of it comes full circle because it's like Mel Gibson's trauma with his wife like gives him the words to say that like let them survive the situation. Contamination OCD has given us all the water glasses. Like Joaquin Phoenix has the bat and like his whole thing and
And
the
the
final words.
asthma.
Right, and then the asthma has saved Morgan's life.
Because he doesn't
So-
breathe in the poison.
So each character like gets
Their little thing.
their
And
little thing in
luckily,
the climax. and
brother
all
had
comes
already
together.
gotten the epinephrine or whatever. So
Yes.
just saying, he
And
already
he-
got it first.
That's true.
And was
Yes.
ready.
That was like the first things they were like, we need to get the epinephrine in case
Because
it's a shot.
they left the basement too soon. I would have, even with my asthma, I would have been like, we gotta wait, y'all. I'm not sure.
Well, he's presumably been having an asthma attack for like
yeah.
the whole night.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and and they know they're kind of rushing.
I would
it,
have
but it's
sent
just
one
like,
person up first.
Well, they do kind of, but they're right behind them, like on the stairs. So yeah, but and then they're just like, so Morgan kind of comes to on the lawn. The alien has been defeated by the water glasses.
Oh my god, he beats the shit out of this alien with a bat, and
Yeah.
it's so fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, my only real
beat
note
that
for it
bitch
is that I wish that we had kept all the full shots of the alien as reflections from the TV.
I did
like
love
Because
that.
there was a lot of
Yeah.
that, so don't get me wrong, and it worked really well. I just wish it had all been that,
Mm-hmm.
or partial shots, like
Yeah.
close-ups of like the poison. That would all be fine to not show through a reflection. But I felt the reflection also made it like I felt there was a parallel between that like wounded alien and Mel Gibson's character. They were almost like dark mirrors of each other. Like this alien's trauma, which like meaning physical trauma of like his fingers getting cut off,
he got left
is seeking
behind.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's gotten left behind by his people. He's kind of seeking like revenge or like closure for like this injury that he has. And I felt the reflection, like the filmmaking use of TV reflections, really like made those parallels explicit. So I wish it had just kept that through the whole finale.
Oh, also, everyone in this family has, no offense, Brett,
Oh.
this whole family of freaks with their big blue eyes, really
Oh.
unnerving. It's
Thank
fucking
you.
blue-eyed freaks.
I've got a few of those in my family.
Well, I was like a Village of the Damned child as a kid. I had like white blonde hair and super blue eyes, and I really was like angelic / creepy looking.
We have one last shot of Father Daddy being Father
Oh,
Daddy
yeah.
again.
He puts on what I would say is ugly black clothes.
And that final shot of them that parallels the shot from the book, where instead of the house being on fire, it's like they're like embracing on the ground and they've all survived, is also an unobstructed shot of that backyard. It's not through a window, it's not through the screen door, which there was another shot of it through the screen door. We now get, it's almost like Father Daddy has like incorporated this trauma like into himself, and he no longer needs to look through, like he no longer has that separation from
Bitch, you're so
his
smart.
past.
So smart.
But I do think there's a lot about like how we consume things through media and those reflections of ourselves. But you're right, there is this like looking through things and seeing things through this sort of barrier.
There are a few moments. One that, just the one I wanted to highlight, the earlier scene. They're at the diner. They're eating their pizza when they're in town earlier.
When they look through the door.
And they look through the door and seeing Ray Reddy, M.
Yeah.
Night Shyamalan, is walking. And Bo's like, who's that?
Is
and
that
everyone's
him?
just silent. Yeah, and then it's like, is that him? And then Ray Reddy sees Mel Gibson like looking at him, and they make like awkward eye contact, and then he like gets in his car and like speeds away.
Heels out.
But it's also again like through a window.
Yeah.
It's like he can't see this man clearly because of like the trauma in the way.
Ooh.
So
M. Night, you
I'm just
used to be
saying.
so
I'm
smart.
not. Brett.
Brett's still smart.
but I did not make signs. Or The Sixth Sense. Or The Happening.
Okay, so
Or
let's
Lady in the Water.
let's talk
Or
about
The
M.
Village.
Night. We're not going to go into all of M. Night's
I kinda
movies.
liked The Village.
I will
I
say
really like The
The
Village.
Village is good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Unbreakable rules. Obviously, Sixth Sense, Signs, Chef's Kiss,
Yes.
super good. And I think, M. Night had all this cultural cachet. He was like the it guy. And then now he's like the butt of jokes, right? He's like,
But less so than
I think
he
he's
was
coming
for a while.
back now.
his movies now are, in my opinion, bad.
Yeah.
Like they're funny
But the show The
bad.
Servant.
Well,
I've
yeah.
not seen
Well,
it.
here's the
I
thing.
haven't
So
seen
my understanding of his career trajectory is like he started off at the very top, like
Yeah.
two of the most famous movies, like still of like the past like 30 years, just like. Then it's somewhat drop off. Like The Village wasn't as well received. I think Lady in the Water was more poorly received. And then that era culminated with The Happening.
The Happening was
which
his downfall.
And that was the peak of like hating on him and like, oh, he's actually terrible and whatever. But then he had a mini comeback because he made The Visit, which was fairly well received, that found footage movie.
It's awful.
I didn't
And
see
he
it.
made Split,
Which is
people
awesome.
also
right.
liked.
Split is awesome.
Split is good.
So he kind of like salvaged some of his reputation, and it's now not quite as derided, even though a lot of his most recent movies have been like on par with like his worst.
I think his Avatar movie is one
I
of
was
like, the hated,
about
most
to ask
hated
about that.
movies of all time. But like he was at such highs. Like I read somewhere, God, who knows where I read this crap, but that he was in talks to do Indiana Jones 4. Like he was talking with
Oh.
Spielberg to do it.
Until
and
Avatar.
No.
Sorry.
No.
That's how I was tying it.
No, this is back when he was like at his heights.
Okay.
And then it just like the schedule, it just didn't work out. But like that's where he was. It's like he was going to be like the big guy. And it just for whatever reason, things always happen with productions. Like
Yeah.
Mel Gibson was going to be Wolverine, but he was too expensive.
Weird.
Thank goodness.
Oh, should we talk about our new segment
Oh yes.
Yes.
for the podcast? How gay is it?
Because we forgot this is like a gay podcast, so we have to have is it gay? How gay was it?
Tell me.
That's the name. Is it gay? How gay is it? Tell me.
I mean, besides you shipping the alien and
I just love
Father
love.
Daddy, I don't know.
I would say more than I expected because to me, Cherry Jones's
Cherry
character
Jones.
was
Yes.
so lesbian coded,
Yes.
like unabashedly. And so I actually did like that. And so gayer than you would expect, but not especially gay overall.
Are we gonna do like a scale, like out of
Yeah.
10? Is this like a
Ooh, what's-
like a
I
3?
give it like a 2 severed alien fingers out of 5
Perfect.
level of gay.
Did it have 5 on each hand? Do we know? Was it a...
Oh, I don't know. That's not what the scale is about.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I gave it 3 Scandinavian women jumping over Cherry Jones. What about you?
Oh, no. I give it, I don't know the gayness, but what did we say? How many did you say?
3.
3. I will do 2.5
Oh, shut
out
the fuck
of...
Fucking fence sitter.
Boo.
You're fired
No,
too.
you have to teach me. I'm boring. 2.5 hearts.
For a movie with Father Daddy, looking good in his little farm attire.
Quite good.
I got a little disappointed when he put on his ugly Episcopal father outfit because I was like, he was looking good. There was a lot of like good late 90s overalls and denim and flannels and I liked the costumes a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought that they were very like real feeling.
Yeah.
I agree. So,
M.
yeah,
Night
well,
was looking good too. Are we talking about how people were looking? M. Night was
Yeah.
looking good. Joaquin was fine.
Joaquin was looking so young.
He was so young.
It's so funny to see him like, oh, little Joaquin.
Little Joaquin.
He was so fresh-faced. And then obviously, like, the kids went on to be really famous in their own right. Like,
Yeah.
Abigail Breslin is still very famous.
Does this Culkin do things now?
Yeah, he was in Black Mirror,
Oh.
the new season. He does a lot, actually. He was in Scream 4. Like, he's
Those
out there
Culkins.
Those
doing
Culkins
stuff.
are
They're everywhere.
Culkining for sure.
Well, at least the 3.
The truth is out there, and so are the Culkins.
That's right.
That's a perfect way to end it.
All right, where can people find us?
I'm glad you asked. People can find us on Instagram at Queer and Loathing Pod.
With
No
an
special characters.
A and
We don't
D.
need to say
Yeah.
Andy and underscore. Queer and Loathing Pod.
You can email us and send Brett love letters and
Yeah.
hate mail.
Yeah. But it's all addressed to me specifically, but it's at
Oh, yeah. I'm not reading that shit. Queer and loathing pod at gmail.com. Again, AND. You can follow me on Letterboxd at hatertot, one word. Everyone else is not wanting to be followed on Letterboxd, which
no.
is brave, I guess.
I
of
don't
me
have
to
that
want
yet.
people to see my
I don't have that, and maybe I should, but we'll see if she does.
well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just not ready for everyone to see just like the true depths of trash that I not only consume but enjoy. But yeah, maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll clean up my act.
We'll see.
But today's not that day. If every single person listening could take the time to rate us 5 stars, give us a sweet little review,
Tell your friends.
tell your
Please.
friends, tell your enemies,
I'm looking at these stats.
tell God, tell the aliens, like get out your baby monitors and just start talking into them.
Yeah.
To spread the word.
It's not mine.
To spread the good news about the Queer and Loathing
Queer
Horror
and Loathing.
podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that'll do it.
So, with that said, I'm queer.
I'm Loathing.
And I'm Samantha.
Bye!